Hang on to that for a minute. Abundance out of barrenness. What a good God. Welcome back to the NIV Application Bible Podcast. By the way, thank y'all. Thank you so much for carving the time out of your schedules. I know you're busy. We don't take it for granted that y'all spend this time with us. Just thank you. It means the world to us. We couldn't do what we do without y'all. We are in the book of 1 Samuel. So we're about 1,000 years before the birth of Christ, his incarnate ministry. This is the end of the period of the judges, and we're going into the season of the prophets with God's people in this redemptive narrative. And the very beginning of 1 Samuel has a story about a chick I wildly identify with. You'll figure out why in just a second. I'm going to start from the top. This is 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 1. There was a certain man from Ramathaim, a Zophite. Doesn't that sound cool? I'd love to be a Zophite. From the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah, son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, son of Tohu, son of Zuph, an Ephraimite. He had 2 wives. I know that probably took your attention. Remember, polygamy is the norm back then. He had 2 wives. One was called Hannah, yay! The other, Peninnah, boo! You'll know why in a minute. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had none. Year after year, this man, Elkanah, went up from his town to worship and sacrifice to the Lord Almighty at Shiloh, where Hophni and Phinehas, the 2 sons of Eli, were priests of the Lord. Whenever the day came for Elkanah to sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters, but to Hannah he gave a double portion, and the Lord had closed her womb. I don't know about you, but I love the idea of a double portion of food when I'm sad, because that's usually when I carbo load. Because the Lord had closed Hannah's womb, her rival, Peninnah, kept provoking her in order to irritate her. This went on year after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her till she wept and would not eat. Her husband Elkanah would say to her, Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? I love this application point right here. When have you come to God in prayer and deep anguish? And what was the outcome? Have you ever had a Peninnah, somebody who provoked you year after year, prompted you to anguish? Once when they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah stood up. Now Eli, the priest, was sitting on his chair by the doorpost of the Lord's house. In her deep anguish, Hannah prayed to the Lord, weeping bitterly, and she made a vow, saying, Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. That's a Nazirite vow. And she kept on praying to the Lord. Eli observed her mouth. Remember, he's the priest. Hannah was praying in her heart, but her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Eli thought she was drunk and said to her, how long are you going to stay drunk? Put away your wine. So this woman is so overwhelmed. She's come before the Lord with so much emotion, so much anguish, so much honesty, that the priest, the big dog at the temple, watches her and assumes she's had too many mimosas before worship. Not so, my Lord, Hannah replied. I am a woman who is deeply troubled. I have not been drinking wine or beer. I was pouring out my soul to the Lord. Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I've been praying here out of my great anguish and grief. Eli answered, go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him. She said, may your servant find favor in your eyes. Then she went her way and ate something, and her face was no longer downcast. Early the next morning they arose and worshiped before the Lord, and then went back to their home in Ramah. Elkanah made love to his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, because I asked the Lord for him. The name Samuel means God heard. I love this story. There's 2 main takeaways that I just love in the story. I'm so grateful for in this story. First of all, she gets to bring everything to the Lord. Sometimes I picked up the idea as a young woman that I had to curate my emotions, that I had to just bring my perky parts, my bright and shiny parts to the Lord. That's not biblically defensible. Over and over and over again, you see it illustrated in the story. God says, bring everything to me. People may not understand you. Maybe even the spiritual leaders in the church you worship, just like Eli misunderstood, may not understand you. But God says, bring me everything. Hannah weeps bitterly before the Lord and says, I just want to have a son. And the Lord hears her. And she has a son who becomes the first prophet of Israel, Samuel. I became a mom at the age of 50 through the miracle of adoption. And so that story, I can't tell you how many times in my 30s and 40s, I would pray a very similar prayer, hoping somehow, some way, God would hear me too. I love this application. Hannah's story illustrates the divine truth that God raises the humble and humbles the proud. Hannah's grateful, humble, and generous spirit is shown in the fact that she gave her precious son into the Lord's service. Hannah kept her promise to God and showed her gratitude for his blessings. That's how Samuel ended up being mentored by Eli and became the first prophet of Israel, who anointed David as a future king who would become the second king of Israel. And then it says this, a common theme in the Bible is abundance out of barrenness. Hang on to that for a minute. Abundance out of barrenness. What a good God. Women who were unable to have children ended up being mothers of some of the most important characters in the Bible: Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and Benjamin, Samson, Samuel, and John the Baptist. God repeatedly brings life where there is no life. Hannah's story can inspire us to praise for the new life God has provided to us in his son, Jesus Christ. Again and again and again, y'all. This proves on every page that the Bible, it's not a textbook. It's not a rule book. It's not a collection of divine morality tales. This, at its core, is a love story. It's about a God who loves us so much. He brings abundance out of barrenness. I hope that's a theme of your story this season.